Build creative confidence. Beat the inspiration addiction. Join the Writer's Gym. Sometimes I wonder if I'm giving inspiration a bit of a difficult time. When I talk about beat the inspiration addiction, and when in the last episode I talked about setting and how it reminds me that inspiration isn't just about waiting for ideas to come into you, that putting yourself in a situation and then being aware of your response to the situation allows you to make more things happen on that blank page. It's putting you in control. I also thought about the early inspirations that I'm kind of stuck with. And by stuck with, I mean happen so early that they're sort of part of how my brain works, whether I want them to be or not, and maybe what those things offer us. So, for example, one of my earliest objects that I owned is a pink rabbit. And you'll never guess what this creative storytelling young child who loved using her imagination called her pink rabbit. I called it Pink Rabbit. I'm sorry. I apologise to Pink Rabbit. Pink Rabbit, you deserve a more interesting name than Pink Rabbit. But we can't argue that I wasn't honest. Anyway, Pink Rabbit used to sail on the ocean that was my bedroom carpet in a Reebok trainer that had belonged to my mother. And that was Pink Rabbit's ship. And I can see it right now as I tell you this. I can see Pink Rabbit sailing in his Reebok trainer over my bedroom floor. And sometimes he stopped to pick up passengers or possibly rescue other toys from various situations because, you know, that's what Pink Rabbit did in his boat for some reason. And I'm thinking about what symbols in there kind of stuck with me. Not so much Reebok trainers, if I'm honest. I'm more of a Puma and Adidas kind of girl, but certainly the idea of the sea, or at least water, has come back again and again. And I have no idea if that pink rabbit sailing in the trainer was the reason for that, or if the reason had given birth to that game, or where it came from. But if I consciously take that image now and decide who I thought this character was and what that boat was, and I challenge myself to write a story about a character that sort of evolved from that, it can be really interesting how the ideas take shape because they're kind of already there. Another one, and one that if you're watching this on YouTube, you will see behind me already, although he's got his back to us, is the Snoopy lamp. Sherlock Snoopy. I think I knew about Sherlock Snoopy before I knew about Sherlock Holmes. And I wonder if the reason Sherlock Holmes turns up in my PhD and in the things that I went on to study was because he was a friend. He was something familiar because he was Snoopy before I had understood about crime fiction or gothic or anything else that became fun and became familiar. He was already on side. So if you would like to make an inspiration bank, because narrowing the blank page feeling down to, I'm going to challenge myself to this, I'm going to take this feature, I'm going to put them together and I'm going to see what happens, can be quite a relief if you're feeling a little bit like, I don't know what to do, or I'd rather be taught than coached. I'd rather be told, do this, do that, and it will work. You know, I mean, obviously that's not what I encourage. I encourage find out what makes you curious and that you are going to find your answers that way. And I don't want to push you too far on that, but it can be comforting from time to time. So just as I had my rabbit in a trainer and just as I have my Sherlock Snoopy lamp behind me, I'd like to ask you to think about stories that were in your head as a kid. And please don't judge them. Please don't think, is this good enough, or is this original enough, or is this too crazy? Because it is what it is. And there's something interesting in there. And maybe there's a genre. Maybe it feels like fantasy. Maybe it feels like literary fiction. Maybe it feels like horror. Maybe it feels like crime. Maybe it feels like romance. Let it feel like whatever it feels like. Even if you don't quite know why Pink Rabbit was sailing on the ship, and maybe it was a sort of rescue story. Maybe it just is. And ask yourself a couple of magic ifs. If there were another character, who would it be? If there were a problem this person needs to solve, what would it be? And you're not telling your brain, I have to come up with this. You're just saying to your brain, if that were the case, what would it be? And allow your brain to answer. Not because it's finishing an exam, but because it's entering the playroom. I like using the example of the rabbit on his trainer because as he's sailing across the bedroom floor, the thing that I see most clearly behind him is the toy cupboard. So as I go and look for more random objects to start stories with, I'm going to mentally go back to that toy cupboard and I'm going to open it. And I'm going to be very unjudgmental as I see what falls out next. You've visited the Writer's Gym with author and coach Dr Rachel Knightley. Production and sound design are by Ashley Lexine and theme music is by Chris Gregory. To join a Writer's Gym workout online or in London as a guest or as a member, visit writersgym.com or email thewritersgym@rachelknightley.com.